Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Stereo Mind and Stereo Mind Classical by Sun Hyuk Chae and Silvergun, published by Playte. And these are musical games for 2 to 5 or to 6 players, which plays in about 15 minutes for ages 8 and up. And before I start explaining how to play the game and share my thoughts on them, I'd like to ask you all to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. That really helps the channel, and if you're already subscribed, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much. Also, please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. You can become a Patreon saint for just €1 or more a month, and in return you get early access to all of my videos, access to Patreon exclusive videos that I post every month, and your name in the credits as well. And you also save up for the exclusive Board Game Heaven enamel pin. And with that out of the way, let's set up a game. To set up a game of Stereo Mind, give every player one of these dials. Decide which player gets to be the cassette deck operator, and that player shuffles this deck of cards. Then you take 8 cards and put them in a stack. The rest of the cards won't be used in that game. That player also takes the pause token, unless you're playing a 2-player game. In a 2-player game, you don't use that token. And the deck operator takes their cell phone. You can put it in the box like this, and you use it to scan the QR codes on these cards. And that's the whole setup. Now you're ready to play, so let's explain the rules. To start playing the game, the cassette deck operator simply takes the top card and flips that around to show 5 different terms, words. So I'll show you this one, for example, has hamburger, fries, salad, fried chicken, and taco. It's usually some kind of theme. In this case, it's like food. So that one's open. Then the next card will have a QR token. So you never scan the card itself, you always scan the next one. So then the operator takes their phone and scans that. You can also just hold the card behind the phone, and there it is, to see if that will scan, and there you go. So then you tap that link, and it'll take you to a YouTube page, which will then start to play a song. And after the tune has stopped playing, every player takes their dial and secretly chooses one of these 5 words that they feel that music matches with. And before choosing, the person with the pause token, which at the start is the deck operator, gives the pause token to another player whom they think might not guess the same thing as the rest of the players. Is basically a wild card. So let's say they give it to player 2 over here, and then everybody secretly chooses one of those. So, you know, you can pick a number. So let's say they thought that music was, I don't know, hamburger. So you set it to 1 and just put it down like that. And they might have chosen something else, etc. So everybody picks a number, and there's only 5 numbers on the dial. There's no 6, as you can see here. So people pick their numbers, and then when everybody has picked the number, you simply reveal what you picked. And if everybody has picked the same number, except for the person with the pause token, you win that round. So in this case, they would have won a round. But if one person had picked something else, then you lose. And if you need to, you can also discuss after revealing the numbers why you picked that number and why you thought that this specific bit of music reminded you of that word, which of course helps trying to get into each other's minds and learning how they think, which would be helpful for the next round. So if you win, you just keep this card as a reminder that you have points. If you don't, you just discard it and you flip over the next card, and then the player with the pause token gives it to somebody else. So this will always go somewhere else. So maybe they want to give it to the person that didn't guess correctly next time. And then again, you scan the next QR code until you've gone through all of the cards. That will be 7 rounds. There's 8 cards, but of course the first one didn't get scanned. And when you've gone through all of the cards, you can check the end of the rules here, which has a results table, which tells you how well you did. If you get all 7 points correct, of course, you've got a perfect score, and 0 to 1, you didn't get anything at all, or just a single one. So that tells you how well you did. Stereo Mind Classical plays exactly the same, with the exception that you can play this game up to 6 players, because there's 6 different dials in the game, and there's 2 mute tokens. You only use 1 normally in a normal game, but if you find it too challenging, you can also optionally use a second one, which is certainly the case with 6 players. That's a lot more challenging to get the same number for all the players. And just like with regular Stereo Mind, you do not use the mute token when you're only playing with 2 players. And all of these cards also have those QR codes, but they will play actual classical music, as opposed to the music from the regular Stereo Mind, which is all made specifically for that game. And as you can see, these cards don't always have words on them. Some will have symbols, such as this card. Some will have regular words, of course. There's other symbols like these. There's all kinds of stuff on these cards, which the regular game did not have. But in both versions, if you are playing a 5-player game, you only select the first 4 numbers to choose from, so you ignore the 5th one. And in the case of Stereo Mind Classical, in a 6-player game, you only choose the first 3 to pick from. And in this game, you will also have a list of results at the end of the booklet here, which tells you how well you did. You can get up to 7 points, of course, if you get all rounds correct, or 0 points if you're all thinking differently. And those are all the rules for Stereo Mind and Stereo Mind Classical. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Stereo Mind by Playte. Let's start with the components. I really like the boxes they come in. These are so clever. Playte has a lot of games that come in similar boxes that open up and sometimes form the board for the game itself. And they are magnetic as well. So the top of this one, for example, which looks like a Discman or a cassette player, or a Walkman, opens up like this, and you have these 2 speakers here with a couple of knobs that you can turn, and then it opens up like this, and you see the inner workings of the cassette deck. And well, it opens up further, of course. You have to open it up like this, again with some magnets hidden here and there, so you can see the inner workings, but you don't really use this for the game. But you can fold it up together again like this, and I'll let you hear the click here from the magnet. Click. And you can just put it on the table and put in your phone, your mobile phone, to use for the scanning. So it's helpful. I personally prefer to just hold the phone and scan the card myself. You know, you just scan it and put the card back. Easier than holding it behind the phone and hoping that the camera is active and that you're ready. It does work, but it's fun that they integrated that into the box, although I think not really necessary, but it's kind of cool. I do really like that this is a Walkman. It's just really cool, and the cards are cassettes. This I love so much. It looks like a real cassette. Stereo Mind side A, and has the QR code here. I think that's super cool. I think that's just really well done. So you're hearing a song, and in this version, the music is made specifically for the game. So they are unique pieces of music, and so you won't recognize them, and you have to match them with those terms, and it's a lot of fun. This one, the classical one, does have classical music, actual existing classical music, which you might recognize. The cards are grand pianos, which is cool. Not as cool as the, as the cassette. I really do like that. But it looks nice. There's the clear QR code on it. And they have like sheet music on the back with the different terms. And this one you can play with up to 6 players because they included a 6th dial. And I also really like that all the dials in this one are instruments. So you have the cello here and like, this is so cool. The cymbals and the guitar, the saxophone, even a flugelhorn. That's excellent. I really do like that thematically. It just looks really cool. This game also has something that this game doesn't, and that's like symbols. So you have cards that have like squiggly lines on them, or a straight line, or a dotted line, which is completely different from having a text on it. And there's like traffic signs or animals, which, to be fair, they could have just written the names of these animals, but these are pictures of animals, which is pretty cute. You've got like monuments, like the Eiffel Tower, the Tower of Pisa. And you've got here like text balloons in different shapes, items like sunglasses, a camera, the travel items, chess pieces. So, and here moods with eyes, which is pretty cool. Very different from just having words. And so that is a different way of associating again. But the game is all about that. So we've covered the components, which are great, the theme, which I really like, and the artwork. Well, the artwork is mostly just the card, the top of the card, and the box. Otherwise, that's pretty much it, because the game is, of course, about music. So gameplay-wise, what you're doing is just listening to this music and trying to make an association with one of those words or symbols or icons. Plus also thinking, what would the others think? If you're playing with 2 people, that is a lot easier, especially if you know that person very well. But if you're playing with more people, with 5 or even 6 people, you do get to basically cross off one of the words. If you're playing with 5 people, you only use the top 4 terms and you ignore the 5th one, which can be a bit annoying because sometimes the 5th one is kind of like the one you would have picked. But I guess you can ignore that rule if you all agree on that. And with this one, if you're playing with 6, you only use the top 3 instead of all 5. Again, which is not always better, I guess. So there's that. But definitely plays really well with 2, 3, or maybe even 4 players. Especially, of course, if you know these players, because you're trying to get into their heads. You're trying to know what they would pick, and you know, if that is something that you would pick as well, because after every round you do get to explain why you picked that word or term and what your association was, and that allows the others to kind of understand why you picked that word and how your brain works, so to speak. So I think that's a lot of fun, and it's not so much of a game, more of an activity really, but it is enjoyable. It's really fun. It's sometimes very surprising and amazing if you match with the other players. If you have a lot of things in common, you're like, that's exactly what I thought, and you're explaining it, and then they're going, yes, that is exactly why I picked it as well. And that's just a lot of fun. So yeah, I think the gameplay is quite unique, really. It's almost like Dixit in a way, but with music. So I thought this is very different, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I do enjoy this one more. I like classical music, but this has just more different kinds of music, and it's a little bit more interesting for me personally. I'd say this was perhaps a little bit easier because classical music gives you a certain mood more easily, right? And that you kind of can match that mood with those words. And I guess a lot of people share that kind of feeling with classical music, whereas these songs are unique and couldn't be a bit more challenging. Replayability is really good because you get a whole bunch of cards, and because you scan one card and look at the other one that's on the table. So if this one's on the table, you scan that one, and you randomly pick 8 cards. So you play 7 rounds because the last one you don't flip over. So there's a whole bunch of cards. You shuffle them, you randomly pick 7. So the words that you're flipping over are going to be matched with a different QR code every time. So that means that you can have the same card sometimes, but with a different song, and then you have to match it again. So that's really well done to mix all that up. And yeah, same goes, of course, with the classical. So the replayability is really high. One thing I forgot to mention, and seeing this token here and these over here, is that you have this token that you can pass on to the player, where you would think they're probably gonna have a different association, and give them basically a wild card, so that their vote, if it's different, still counts as the same vote that everybody else hopefully has. But then that person, after that round, has to pass it on to somebody else. So you can't just keep it at one person. That wouldn't be fun either. So it's a fun option to make it a little bit easier, I guess. Then there's the language dependency. Well, the game is language dependent because it does have all of these words on these cards, of course, which are in English and in Korean. So you do need to understand what these cards say, apart from, of course, those cards that this version of the game has with all the icons on them, which I guess you can also use, but it's less than half of all the cards that have them, much less than half, so that is limited. It would be cool to have a full deck of cards that you could use with, I guess, with both of them, but then you would scan, of course, a certain type of music. But it would be fun to have more of those cards in both games, to make it a little less language dependent. But there is that, so that is something you need to keep in mind when purchasing this game. In the end, it's very enjoyable. It's just a fun, you know, again, activity more than a game. But yeah, I guess I like it. And people I played it with liked it a lot as well. So I do want to give this a big thumbs up. And again, I'd like to thank Playte for giving me these games to review. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps the channel. And also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.